Hey there, in this video I'm going to show you the basics of crocheting. So to start off, we are going to learn how to do a slip knot and chain stitch. So as you can see here, I'm just wrapping the yarn over the hook, giving it a little twist, and this is what we call pulling through the loop. And you can see here it's created that knot at the bottom. That's what we call a slip stitch, and it's the basis for any new crochet piece. Next is the chain stitch. You're going to start by wrapping the yarn over the hook and then pulling that front loop through the back loop. You can see here it's creating this kind of braided look that is the chain stitch. This is typically the foundation for any kind of crochet piece that's worked in the row. So you can see here I'm just going to continue making a couple of chain stitches. This is a good thing to practice as it's a very easy foundation. It's going to be the start for a lot of projects. So to take a look a little more closely at this, each of these V shapes that you see is actually a stitch. So now we're going to learn how to work a single crochet into those chain stitches. So you can see here there's two sides, the top and bottom of the loop. We're going to stick it into that top one, pull up a new loop, wrap the yarn over, and pull it through both of those. So let's do that again. You stick it through, wrap over the top one, pull through the first loop, wrap the yarn over the hook, and then pull it through both of those loops in the back. And this is creating a single crochet. So again, we'll go into that chain stitch, pull up one loop, wrap it over, pull through both of those second loops. This is the basics for working into a chain stitch in general. So once you start off with that chain, this is just a single crochet to practice learning the single crochet stitch, but you'll actually do the same technique working into that chain with any other stitch if you need to. So I'm going to work through 2 rows of the single crochet just so you can see what it looks like. This is a great one to practice. In this video, I'm just going to be doing one piece that's got all of these different stitches together, so you can take a look at what they all look like. But again, this one is the single crochet now. So you can follow along with this video if you'd like. I'm just going to do those 2 rows so you can see what it looks like. So you can see at this point I've reached the end of the chain that I'm working on. This is what the single crochet looks like with a complete row. You can see it's pretty short and neat. And then on the top here I have these new set of V's. These are the stitches we're going to be working going forward. So in order to continue in that next row, you're going to make one chain stitch and then rotate your work around. Now instead of working into the chain stitch, you're going to work into these stitches and you're going to push the hook through both sides of that stitch. So I've got both pieces of that V shape on the hook. And then we're going to follow the same technique to make the single crochet, which is that yarn over, pull through that first stitch, yarn over, pull through both of those loops. This is typically what it's going to look like to work into that foundation row. So going forward, once we have got the chain filled in, any of the other rows you're working on are going to work through both loops of that stitch on the top there. So I'm just going to make one more row of single crochet here so you can get an idea of what that looks like from both sides and get some practice with the single crochet. So I've reached the end of that second row. The next thing that I'm going to show you how to do is a double crochet. So this is 2 rows of the single crochet finished up now, stacked on top of each other, and along the top we've got those stitches that we're going to work into. So now let's learn how to make that double crochet. In order to turn your work, this time you want to make 2 chain stitches. This is called the turning chain. Then you're going to rotate that around and work into the opposite side. So we're starting off by wrapping the loop over the hook, inserting into that stitch, pull up 1 loop. So you should have a total of 3 loops on the hook. And this time we're going to wrap over, pull through those first 2, and then wrap the yarn over again and pull through those second 2 loops. And this creates the double crochet. So you can see it's a bit taller than the single crochet. It's essentially 2 single crochets stacked, which is why it's called the double crochet. We're going to do the same thing into the stitches across here just to get some practice, but again we're going through both sides of that loop in the stitch below, pull up a loop after wrapping over, so we have 3 total, yarn over, wrap over 2, yarn over, and pull through the next 2. I'm going to continue working along this row in the double crochet. So as I'm reaching the end of this round, or this row of double crochets, I'm going to again do that turning chain to rotate and work on the other side of the work. But let's take a look at how different that double crochet looks from the single crochet. So you can see it's a bit taller, there's a little bit more space between the stitches, so it works up to a little bit looser of a fabric, but it works up quicker because the stitch is wider. So to rotate again, we're going to do that 2 chains for the turning chain, flip the work over, and then repeat the same steps through the other side for another row of the double crochet stitch. So we're reaching the end of the second round of double crochets. The next thing that we're going to take a look at is what we call the half double crochet. You can see here the difference between the double crochet and the single. So it's a lot taller, like I mentioned, and it works up pretty differently. So now for the half double crochet, it's essentially just a mix up of the double crochet and the single crochet. So to start, we're going to do 1 turning chain, then wrap the yarn over and insert just like the beginning of a double crochet. Pull it up so you have 3 loops, but then you're going to wrap the yarn over and then pull it through all 3 of those loops. So again, wrap, insert, pull up a loop. You should have 3, then you'll wrap the yarn again and pull it through all 3 of those loops. And that's the half double crochet. So I'm going to continue that across this row just to get some practice. So now I've reached the end of this first row of half double crochets. I'm going to do 1 turning chain. You can see the stitch looks different from both of the previous ones. It's a little bit more compact than the double crochet, so it's a little tighter, but it's still a little bit taller than the single crochet, so it works up a bit quicker. So I'm going to do 1 more row of half double crochet here, just working through that top stitch like we have been. So this is the end of that row of half double crochets. You can see 2 here. They look pretty different. This is actually one of my favorite stitches because it goes really quickly and it works up a bit faster than a single crochet, and it looks pretty neat. So the next one we want to learn that's out of the basic stitches is the triple crochet. So I've just done 3 turning chains, turned the work, and you're going to wrap the yarn over the hook twice, Then insert into the stitch, pull up a loop for a total of 4 loops on your hook. Then we're going to do a yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through the final 2. So you can see it's pretty extended. Looks like a couple of stitches stacked on top of each other almost. But again, for this one, it's the wrap over twice, pull up a loop through the stitch for a total of 4 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the next 2, and then yarn over to pull through the final 2. So I'm going to do 1 row of this triple crochet here to show you what it looks like worked up. So reaching the end of this triple crochet round, you can see that the stitches work up a lot taller, but then you get these gaps in between them. So this one can be used to make more of a mesh fabric, but it's a bit different texture-wise than the other two. So it works up really tall with a little bit of those gaps between, so you can make something kind of longer, quicker, but it's got those holes. So the next technique is the back loop only crochet. So what we've been doing so far is putting the stitches through both loops of these stitches that we're working into. This technique you only work into the back loop. So we've got 2, you're going to stick the hook only into that back one, pull up a loop. You can make any stitch you'd like. In this example, I'm just doing single crochets, but I'm just putting it only into the back loop of that stitch instead of through both. So you can see it's creating this kind of ridge along the front of it with that unworked loop. This technique can be used for a variety of purposes. Sometimes you can use it for ribbing if you're making something like a sweater. It can also be used to kind of leave that open loop on the front if you need to work into kind of like a surface level, so you can work back into that open loop. Now, this is a handy technique just to keep in your back pocket. Again, it can be done with any stitch. In this example, it's a single crochet, but you can see it just works up with the regular stitch, and then you get that ridge along the front with the unworked loop. So next I'm going to show you the front loop only, which is essentially the same technique, but you use the front loop instead of the back. So out of those 2 parts of the V that makes up the stitch, we're going to pick up only that front loop and then work the stitch into the front loop only. So this leaves that unworked stitch or ridge on the back side of the work. So you can see in this case, it looks complete from the front, but on the back side of the work, we've got that unworked loop. And again, this can be used for similar purposes, for ribbing, for leaving that unworked loop to come back to later, but it's pretty straightforward. The last stitch I want to show you is the slip stitch. This one is very straightforward. You just put your hook through the first stitch and then pull up a loop and pull it through both that stitch and your existing loop. So this works very flat. It's good for joining pieces together if you're just attaching them, if you're attaching work at the beginning of a new round, or you can actually do it through an already completed piece of crochet fabric to do what's called working on top to make extra designs. So you're just pulling up that loop through both the stitch and the working loop on your hook to create this flat stitch across the top. Alright, and that is the basic crochet stitches. So all I'm going to do now is just fasten off this little example block, but you can see here we've got a representation of all of those basic stitches. So feel free to go back and watch any of the parts that you need to again if you're practicing any of these stitches or techniques. But on this piece you can see from the bottom to the top we have the single crochet, double crochet, half double crochet, then that triple crochet above this one, and then finally that front loop back loop technique, and then the slip stitch along the very top. And that is really all the basics you need to know to get started with crocheting. So thanks for watching. I hope to see you in another video sometime soon.